and welcome back to 40 Days of Prayer. Today is day 14, and we're still looking at the question of why we should pray. We need to pray because we are living in the last days. If you knew that Jesus was coming back tonight at midnight, what would you do today? How would you live this day if you knew that tonight Jesus Christ would return and we'd be raptured together up into heaven? Well, if you're like me, you'd spend more time praying today than you probably did any other day of your life. You'd probably spend more time talking to people about Jesus and talking to Jesus about people than you ever had before, because you'd want to be prepared and ready. We're living in the last days. We're not going to get that 12 o'clock warning. We got to be ready every single day. Matthew chapter 25 gives two parables about this. Jesus talks about 10 virgins. He describes a day when a bridegroom is going to come. And this bridegroom gets to the bride's house. And when he gets to the bride's house, typically he takes the bride and her bride's party, the procession, back to his house for a week-long feast. In this particular case, there were 10 virgins there that were part of the processional. 5 of them were ready when the groom came. 5 of them weren't. The 5 that weren't ready, they didn't have any oil in their lamps, and they had to go out and purchase the oil. But by the time they got back from purchasing the oil, everyone was gone, and the party already started, and they were left out. Jesus' point is in Matthew 25 and verse 13, and he says this, "Therefore keep watch. You do not know the day or the hour." You don't know when Jesus is coming back. So it's your responsibility to keep prayed up and ready for him to return. Keep short accounts with him. Don't have anything that's lingering between you and God. The next parable is similar. It's about money that a master gives to his servants before he leaves on a journey. And these talents, he calls them, it's really money, it represents something in our lives. It represents our resources. One of the resources that God has given to you is time. What are you going to do with your time? In the case of Matthew 25, he gave different amounts of resources to different servants so that no one's excuse could be, well, I was overwhelmed, you gave me too much. He didn't give them too much. He gave them according to their ability. The only way they could fail was because of laziness or because they didn't love their master. In the same way, God has given you time. He's given me time. What we do with our time shows that we're either lazy or we're not lazy. That we love our master, that we don't love our master. Are we going to spend our time praying during these last days? Before Jesus left the earth, he left us with one strong message. His last words to us in Revelation chapter 22 was this, verse 12, "Behold, I am coming soon." And if that were enough, second to last verse in the Bible is this, "Yes, I am coming soon." The words of Jesus. He wants you to know something. He's coming back, and also, he's coming back soon. Why do I believe that he's coming back soon now? After 2,000 years since this was spoken, why do I believe it's soon? 3 reasons. Number 1, the knowledge explosion. Daniel chapter 4, or Daniel chapter 12 and verse 4, the Bible says this, "But you, Daniel, close up and seal up the words of the scroll until the time of the end. Many will go here and there to increase knowledge." There will be a knowledge increase in the last days, and that is what we have experienced. From the time of the Garden of Eden until the early 1900s, the transportation mode was a horse. Solomon rode a horse, David rode a horse, George Washington rode a horse. Till the early 1900s when they invented the automobile. Then it was an airplane. Then it was a jet plane. And then it was supersonic flight. And now you can get from Paris to New York in 3 hours. Then to the moon. And in less than 100 years, we went from a horse and buggy to the moon. Talk about a knowledge increase. Knowledge is increasing. It's doubling every 3 years. We're seeing an increase of knowledge. Look at light. From the time of the Garden of Eden to the early 1900s, we were using torches and candles to light the way. Then the light bulb was invented, and within 10 years, nearly every household in America had light bulbs. Communication. From the time of the Garden of Eden until the early 1900s, we communicated using drums, smoke signals, even shiny pieces of brass from one mountain to the next. Then they invented the telegraph, and then the telephone, and then the television, and then the computer, and we have email. And now we get cell phone calls in an elevator. We have seen an increase in knowledge in the last 100 years like the world has never known. And this was predicted. 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 7, the Bible says this: always learning, but never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. This is talking about the end times, the last days, that we would be ever learning, but never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. That describes our generation. I also believe we're living in the last days because Israel became a nation May 15th, 1948. This was predicted in Isaiah chapter 66 and verse 8, where the Bible says, whoever heard of such a thing? Whoever seen such things? Can a country be born in a day, or a nation be brought forth in a moment? Yet no sooner is Zion in labor that she gives birth to her children. The Bible teaches that Israel would become a nation again. In fact, Jesus said this would be the sign of his coming. In Matthew 24, verse 32, when the disciples came and said, what will be the sign of your coming? Here's what he said. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know the summer is near. Even so, when you see these things, you will know that it is near, right at the door. I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. This was symbolic of the nation of Israel rebirthing and becoming a nation again. And it happened in 1948. The last reason why I believe that Jesus is coming back soon is the moral decay that we're experiencing. Also, in response to the question that the disciples asked Jesus, he says in Matthew 24 and verse 12, because the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. We're seeing this in our generation. You can turn on the television and you can see mothers who are suffocating and killing their babies. The natural love is just not there anymore. 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 1, the Bible says, but mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. That describes the day that we're living in. You know something? Jesus is coming back soon. We're living in the last days. I can't think of a better reason to end Why Pray, because the moment is coming when the trumpet will sound and the shout will come, let's go. We're on our way. And you know something? At that moment, there's no time to prepare. Now is the time to prepare. Today is the day to prepare. Spend time in prayer today with the Lord and get ready for the coming of the Lord. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.